She was the largest warship ever built, yet she fired her main guns just once. She cost more than any vessel in history, but never changed the outcome of one battle. The Yamato was Japan's ultimate weapon, but she arrived in a war that had already moved on. This is the story of the mightiest mistake in all of naval history, frozen in steel. By 1934, Japan had secretly withdrawn from all international naval arms limitation treaties. Japanese admirals believed one supreme ship could defeat the entire American battleship fleet. Their strategy was called the decisive battle doctrine, a fatal gamble built on old thinking. The plan called for a single super battleship to outgun anything the Americans could build. 24 separate designs were submitted, but only one final plan was chosen in 1937. The keel of the Yamato was laid at Kure Naval Arsenal on November 4, 1937. The construction site was hidden behind rope nets, bamboo screens, and strict military secrecy. Every worker signed a secrecy oath, while military police watched every move inside the yard. Japan called her guns 40-centimeter weapons, disguising the true 18.1-inch caliber. Her 9 Type 94 guns were the largest ever placed on any warship in all of history. A single Yamato gun turret weighed as much as a standard American destroyer of that era. Her armor belt measured 410 millimeters thick, but her turret faces were an astonishing 650 millimeters. She displaced 72,000 tons fully loaded, far exceeding every battleship then afloat by thousands. She was launched on August 8, 1940, but American intelligence never knew she existed. The Yamato was commissioned on December 16, 1941, just 9 days after Pearl Harbor. While her guns were aimed at enemy ships, Japanese carriers had already attacked Pearl Harbor. Japan's naval doctrine assumed battleships would fight battleships, but the Pacific said otherwise. While Yamato sat idle in harbor, American carriers struck Japan's airfields and island bases. In June 1942, Admiral Yamamoto commanded the Midway operation from aboard the Yamato herself. Midway was a catastrophe. Japan lost 4 carriers in a single day, yet Yamato never fired. The aircraft carrier had replaced the battleship as the decisive weapon, but Japan refused to admit it. Yamato spent most of 1942 and 1943 anchored in harbor, burning precious fuel she could not spare. She became known among sailors as the Hotel Yamato because she rarely left port to fight. Her fuel consumption was staggering. Every hour at full speed burned hundreds of tons of oil. Japan's oil reserves were critically limited, yet she poured fuel into ships that never fought. Meanwhile, the United States was building carriers and aircraft faster than Japan could imagine. The steel used to build Yamato could have produced several additional aircraft carriers for Japan. The same resources could have funded hundreds of skilled aircraft pilots Japan would desperately need. Every ton poured into Yamato was a resource that Japan's air arm never received and desperately needed. In December 1943, an American submarine torpedoed the Yamato while she was transiting to Truk. The torpedo tore open her hull, sending her back to Kure for months of costly repairs and upgrades. Japan refitted Yamato with more anti-aircraft guns, a sign that air power now ruled the Pacific. By June 1944, Yamato was sent to the Battle of the Philippine Sea, but again her guns stayed silent. Japan's carriers were decimated at the Philippine Sea, called the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot by Americans. Japan lost over 400 aircraft and her best remaining pilots in a single catastrophic afternoon. Japan's navy was now a fleet without wings, while Yamato sat uselessly in port carrying her giant guns. October 1944 brought the Battle of Leyte Gulf, the largest naval battle in all of human history. Yamato led the Japanese center force, 5 battleships and 10 heavy cruisers, into the Philippines. Before reaching the Philippines, American submarines struck, sinking 2 Japanese heavy cruisers. Vice Admiral Kurita himself was thrown into the water but rescued and transferred to the Yamato. On October 24th, American carrier aircraft found the center force in the Sibuyan Sea. Wave after wave of American aircraft targeted the Yamato's sister ship, the mighty Musashi. Musashi absorbed 19 torpedoes and 17 bombs, yet the Titanic ship refused to sink quickly. At 7:36 p.m., Musashi rolled and sank, taking over 1,000 of her crew to the ocean floor. Yamato watched her sister die, yet pressed on through the San Bernardino Strait that same night. At dawn off Samar Island, Yamato stumbled onto a group of small American escort carriers by accident. For the first and only time, Yamato fired her massive main guns at enemy surface ships off Samar. Her colored dye-marked shells fell among American escort carriers, but her aim was surprisingly poor. American destroyers attacked with torpedoes and guns, confusing and delaying the massive Japanese force. Kurita inexplicably ordered a retreat, with the invasion fleet almost within his gun's full reach. The Yamato fired her main guns in anger just that one morning, then turned and withdrew forever. After Leyte Gulf, the Yamato returned to Japan, damaged, humiliated, and with nowhere left to fight. By early 1945, American forces had landed on Okinawa, just 300 miles from mainland Japan. Japan's high command was desperate, and they chose to sacrifice their last great battleship in response. Operation Tengo was conceived, a one-way suicide mission for the Yamato and her escort ships. The captains were told of the one-way mission just 2 days before departure, on April 5th. The Yamato was given only enough fuel for a one-way passage. There was no plan to return home. Vice Admiral Ito had opposed the mission as futile, yet he obeyed and sailed with his men regardless. 10 ships departed in the final Japanese surface fleet sortie, a cruiser and 8 destroyers with her. American submarines spotted the force immediately and radioed its position to carrier Task Force 58. By the morning of April 7th, 380 American carrier aircraft were already flying toward the Yamato. Yamato had only light cloud cover for protection, and no fighter aircraft to defend her from attack. At 12:32 p.m., the American strike arrived, and the sky over Yamato became a storm of diving planes. American pilots focused all torpedo hits on the port side to deliberately flood and capsize the great ship. Hit by 11 torpedoes and 6 bombs, the Yamato began listing hard to port and losing all speed. At 2:02 p.m., the abandon ship order was given. But for most of her crew, it was already too late. Last, Captain Kosaku Ariga tied himself to the binnacle and went down with his enormous ship. A final massive explosion tore the Yamato apart. The fireball was seen 100 miles away. Of 3,332 crew aboard, only 269 men survived. The rest went down with the world's largest battleship. The Americans lost only 10 aircraft and 12 men to sink Japan's greatest and costliest warship. The sinking of Yamato marked the final end of the battleship era in all of naval history forever. Japan spent enormous national treasure building, a weapon already made obsolete by the aircraft carrier. Every resource poured into the Yamato was a strategic blunder Japan would never be able to undo. While Yamato sat idle, American industry launched one new carrier roughly every single month. Japan's decisive battle strategy was outdated before Yamato was even launched in August 1940. The Yamato fired her main battery in anger only once, and even then she sank only one small vessel. She was designed to intimidate the world, but she became a cautionary tale for every navy that followed. Her wreck lies in 2 halves at 1,000 feet deep, a steel monument to the wrong strategic idea. The Yamato was not just a ship. She was Japan's biggest and most costly strategic mistake of the war.